I want to share with you the worst feeling that I had as a crypto investor over the last 4 years. And you might think it was a time when I lost a lot of money doing something or not doing something. And it actually wasn't that. It wasn't when things turned bearish that I had this sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. It was actually when I realized that things were turning very bullish. It was at a specific moment that I realized that I had made some kind of mistake. And so when was that? Let's go back to November of 2023. And if you hadn't been in crypto at all, we weren't in crypto before 2023. If I were to describe 2023 to you, it was a year of just slowly grinding higher with a 200-day range packed in between. So January 1st of 2023 was a very exciting day. Bitcoin, it was clear to me at least that the bear market, the bottom was in and that Bitcoin was going to grind higher. And then it did. It broke out to $19,000. Crazy for me to even say that at this time. And then it climbed eventually to $25,000. And then for a while, for 200 days, it ranged between $25,000 and $31,000. And a lot of cryptos were still very cheap at that time. And then you fast forward to November of 2023, and it felt like it was out of nowhere where Bitcoin broke out of that range to the upside, and it never looked back. It never came and even back tested $31,000. And a lot of alts that were accumulating in major ranges, they also started breaking out. And it was at that moment where I would say I had the sickest feeling in my stomach. That was worse than any loss that I experienced. It was worse than whatever, buying into something that went straight to zero. That was not a good feeling. And the reason why is because I knew that my allocations were not yet completed to a satisfactory level, and that I had missed out on bigger gains than I should have if I had been more strategic and more intentional about buying, even when my expectations are not that I'm going to get some kind of instant return. Now, I was DCAing, I was accumulating, but I had not accumulated enough because I thought I had more time. And that was there was a lesson that I learned from that. And I posted this on my X account. It's a very simple thing, but it's simply this: buy earlier than you think you should, and sell earlier than you think you should. That is, from now on, I learned my lesson in a major way, because in early 2024, when Bitcoin broke its previous cycle peak, I sold a lot of my crypto. I sold over half of my crypto that I had accumulated in the bear market. And it turns out that was a phenomenal time to sell. I didn't know. I thought it would have gone higher, but it was earlier than I thought that I should. And it ended up that I ended up selling the peak, at least that first peak, in early 2024. So not only sell earlier than you think you should, but buy earlier than you think you should. And here we are in 2026. And what should the messaging be based off of that? It's in general that you should be buying, not financial advice, you should be buying earlier than you think you should. If you think that Bitcoin is bottoming in the fourth quarter of this year, which I do not, but if you do, and it's fine, if you think that, honestly, again, not financial advice, you should buy before the fourth quarter of this year. If you remember, altcoins bottomed out, Ethereum bottomed out in June of 2022, and a lot of people thought that it would have bottomed in November of 2022 like Bitcoin did, but it didn't. And so Ethereum would have been a much easier cryptocurrency to buy, and if you didn't buy, it went from under $1,000 up to $2,000 and then back down to $1,200. So there was a point where you could have still bought some really cheap Ethereum, but the perfect time to have bought would have been earlier than a lot of people thought. And so I'm quite convinced that whenever Bitcoin breaks out, will it be sooner than people think? I think it will be sooner. And I think that people are going to be kicking themselves when that inevitable breakout comes, that there's going to be a lot of people who are just going to be really upset, and they're going to be thinking, man, I wish I had bought more at an earlier date. And that's just how it works in investing. That's, I believe, at least what smart money does. They buy too early. And you know what? They're willing to deal with the short-term losses, willing to live with that. And then they sell too early. And I remember reading this book, I think it was called The Contrarian Investor, where somebody asked, the author asked somebody who had been successful in Wall Street for many decades, what was the key to their success? And they answered, I always made the mistake of selling too soon. Because the longer we go in a crypto bull run, the more crowded that field gets of people wanting to sell at the perfect time. And so as investors mature, as they get older, as they get more experienced, they realize that, all right, if I don't time this perfectly, I'm most likely going to be hit really hard on the other side of that crowded end date trade. It works the same way with bottoms, especially now that we have smarter money in crypto, especially in Bitcoin. It works the same way with bottoms, where the fourth quarter of this year for Bitcoin is going to be a crowded trade. And when we get to the fourth quarter of this year, if Bitcoin bottoms in the fourth quarter, there will be people calling for lower. And even then, it's not going to be an easy buy. But you know who's going to do pretty well or very well? It's going to be the people who didn't quite worry about that. And they just bought. They bought and didn't worry about it. And, I wouldn't be surprised at all, again, which I don't think it's going to happen, if Bitcoin bottomed in the fourth quarter of this year, that it was a very quick bottom and people will have thought that it should have taken longer, and that after that, Bitcoin would break out pretty hard and hit a new all-time high in 2027. I mean, all-time high in 2026 is in play. And if Bitcoin hits a new all-time high in 2026, that means it most likely would happen in the fourth quarter. And a lot of people waiting for the perfect time to buy instead of buying too early, there's going to be a lot of regrets there. So I'm not going to be a part of that. I'm not going to have any regrets. I see an opportunity. Bitcoin under $70,000. I see an opportunity to make gains. It may not be the perfect amount of gains. I don't know. But what I see ahead of me is an opportunity, and I'm taking advantage of that. And not just with Bitcoin. I have a good amount of Ethereum. I'll be loading up on smaller caps eventually, not yet. And we'll see. But it's worked out for me, and I would hope that it works out for you as well.